I'm about to show you how to cover a wall in real, natural stone, the kind that makes people stop and stare. The kind a professional mason would charge you $2,000 or $3,000 to install, and do it yourself, with your own two hands, using nothing but a tube of adhesive you can buy for about $30. No mortar, no mixing board, no trowel, no scratch coat, no masonry experience whatsoever. And here's the part that sounds too good to be true. Done right, it holds for decades. This is not a fake, and it's not a gimmick. Contractors quietly do a version of this all the time. But I'm going to be straight with you from the very first minute, because this is exactly the part those slick, just glue stone to anything videos leave out, and it's the part that actually matters. This method works incredibly well, but only within limits. There are a few rules you cannot break, and if you break them, you don't just waste your money. You end up with heavy stone peeling off a wall, which can genuinely hurt someone standing near it. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to do this, exactly where it works, and exactly where it doesn't. The honest version nobody else gives you. You'll know the one tube too by the one surface rule that makes or breaks the whole job, and the weight limit that decides whether your stone stays on that wall for 30 years or comes down in 30 days. But before I show you how, let me show you why this is worth doing and why you've probably assumed it was out of your reach. Look at a blank wall in your home. A boring drywall accent wall in the living room. A plain, ugly gray concrete foundation on the outside of your house. A flat, lifeless fireplace that should be the centerpiece of the room and instead just sits there. Now picture any one of those covered in real natural stone. The texture, the depth, the way the light catches every ledge. It transforms a room. It's the single most dramatic upgrade you can make to a wall, and everybody knows it. That's why it costs what it costs. Because here's what happens when you call a professional. A mason comes out, looks at your wall, and quotes you a number that makes your stomach drop. For a fireplace, or an accent wall, or a stretch of foundation, you're often looking at $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and a big chunk of that isn't the stone at all. It's labor. Skilled masonry labor is expensive, and stonework is slow, careful, back-breaking work. So you assume that's just the price of admission. You assume stone is something only a professional with years of training and a truck full of tools can install, and you file the whole idea away under someday, when I can afford it. And that assumption that you need a mason, mortar, and years of skill is exactly what I want to take apart. Because for the right stone, on the right surface, it simply isn't true anymore. Now, most people, when they think of stone on a wall, picture the old way. And the old way is genuinely hard. Full-thickness stone, real heavy rock, has to be stacked and supported and set in mortar over metal lath, on a proper footing that can carry all that weight. That's a real trade, and for heavy stone, you genuinely need it. But that is not what we're doing here. What changed the game is a product called thin stone veneer, real natural stone. Sliced thin, usually around an inch thick or less, so that it weighs a fraction of what full stone weighs. And once the weight drops low enough, everything changes. Because a lightweight piece of stone doesn't need to be held up by mortar and a footing. It can be held by adhesive. And that is the whole secret. If you've been on this channel before, you know the pattern by now. We take the expensive, intimidating, you need a professional version of a job, and show you the honest, doable version that saves you a fortune without cutting the corners that actually matter. This is one of the best examples of it. Subscribe right now, because we're building a whole library of exactly this. So here's what you actually need. Real thin, natural stone veneer, which you can buy by the box or by the square foot at any home center or stone yard. It comes in flats and corner pieces, in every color and style you can imagine. And a heavy-duty construction adhesive rated for stone and masonry, the strong stuff. The kind that comes in a tube for a caulk gun and costs around $30 for enough to do a good-sized wall. That's the core of it. A box of stone, a few tubes of adhesive, a caulk gun, and some basic tools. Let me be specific about that tool list, because it really is short. You need a caulk gun to run the adhesive, a level to keep your courses straight, a tape measure, and a way to cut stone, and that last one is the only real tool investment. Because natural stone won't come in the exact sizes you need. You'll have to trim pieces to fit around corners, along edges, and around outlets and switches. The simplest tool for that is an angle grinder with a diamond blade, which cuts through thin natural stone cleanly score the face, then cut or snap through for a lot of cuts. A wet saw with a diamond blade is faster, cleaner, and keeps the dust down. Either way, wear eye protection and a dust mask because cutting stone throws sharp dust. And here's a tip that saves a lot of grief. Plan your layout so cut edges land at corners and edges where they're least visible, and keep the clean, natural, uncut faces of the stone out in the open where the eye lands. Nobody should be able to spot your cuts. One more word on picking your stone, because it sets the whole feel of the finished wall. Thin natural veneer comes in stack ledger styles, rounded river rock styles, chiseled squared styles, and everything between, and the style you choose takes the room anywhere from rustic cabin to sleek modern. By about 10 to 15% more than your square footage says, because you'll lose some to cuts and breakage. And it's far better to have extra from the same lot than to run out and find the next box doesn't quite match. Order it all at once, from the same batch, so your colors blend. Now, let me explain why a tube of glue can hold real stone to a wall. Because once you understand it, you'll understand the rules that come with it. A good construction adhesive doesn't just stick to the surface, it grabs, and it cures into something incredibly strong. Gripping across the entire back face of each stone, the bond strength of these modern adhesives is genuinely enormous, far more than enough to hold a lightweight piece of stone in place indefinitely. The adhesive isn't the weak link. It never is. The weak link is always one of two other things: how heavy the stone is and what you're sticking it to. And that is exactly where I have to be honest with you, because this is the part that keeps your wall safe. Here is the single most important rule in this entire video, and if you remember nothing else, remember this. This method is for thin, lightweight stone only. Thin veneer, roughly under about 15 pounds per square foot. Real, natural thin stone is heavier than the manufactured lightweight stuff, so you have to pay attention to the weight of what you're buying. If your stone is too heavy, if you try to glue up thick, full-weight rock, one of two things fails. Either the adhesive can't hold that much dead weight over time, or worse, the adhesive holds just fine, but the surface you glued it to tears away from the wall and the whole thing comes down together. Heavy stone needs mechanical support, a ledge, wall ties, a footing, the real masonry method. Do not glue heavy stone to a wall. That's not a shortcut, that's a hazard. And here's how to actually check this before you buy, so you're not guessing. The box or the supplier will list the weight, usually as pounds per square foot. Read it. If it's thin veneer in that lightweight range, you're good to glue. If the number is high, or if the pieces feel like real heavy rock in your hand, that's your signal to stop and use a mechanically supported, mortared method instead. 30 seconds reading the label is what stands between a wall that lasts and a pile of stone on your floor. The second rule is about that surface, the substrate, and it's just as important. Adhesive is only as good as what it's stuck to. That surface has to be clean, dry, solid, and dust-free. It cannot be painted, it cannot be dusty, it cannot be crumbling, and it cannot be damp. Adhesive will not bond to a dusty or glossy or painted surface. It'll grab the thin layer of dust or paint, and that layer peels away from the wall, taking your stone with it. And here's the big one that catches people. The gold standard surface for this is cement board, the hard gray backer board, like the kind used behind tile. That's what you want to be gluing to. Plain drywall is a problem, because even if the adhesive grips the drywall perfectly, drywall itself is just paper and gypsum screwed to studs, and it cannot carry the weight of a wall of stone. The drywall will pull right off the studs. So for anything more than the very lightest decorative veneer, you put up cement board first, screwed into the studs, and you glue your stone to that. Solid surface, solid support, solid bond. The third thing you have to be honest about is where the wall is, inside or outside, because they are not the same job. Inside, on an accent wall or a fireplace, this method absolutely shines. It's dry, it's stable, the temperature doesn't swing wildly, and a clean cement board surface will hold thin stone beautifully for decades. Outside is a different animal. An exterior wall faces rain, freezing and thawing, and big temperature swings, and all of that works against an adhesive bond over the years. Exterior stone needs a proper weather-resistant barrier behind it, so water can't get trapped against your house. It needs flashing at the bottom to drain, and it needs materials rated to survive freeze-thaw. And I'll tell you the honest truth, For a serious exterior stone wall, the safer, longer-lasting method really is mortars over lath. Done to code, or at the very least, an exterior-rated system installed exactly the way the manufacturer specifies. Gluing stone to the outside of your house with a tube of interior adhesive and hoping for the best is how you end up with stones on the ground and water rotting the wall behind them. Interior, glue away. Exterior, respect the rules, or hire it out. Now, let me walk you through actually doing it on an interior wall step by step. First, you prep the surface, get it clean, dry, dust-free, and sound, and if you're going over drywall, get that cement board up and screwed into the studs first. Second, you plan your layout. Lay some of your stone out on the floor first, mixing pieces from different boxes so the color and size vary naturally, so you're not putting all the big dark pieces in one spot. Third, you start at the bottom and work up. This matters because each course of stone helps support the one above it, while everything cures. Run a heavy zigzag bead of your construction adhesive across the entire back of each stone. Press it firmly onto the wall with a little twist to seat it and hold it for a moment. Work your way up, keeping your pieces tight or evenly spaced depending on the look you want. And here is a step people skip and regret. Support the stones while the adhesive cures. Adhesive doesn't grab instantly at full strength. It needs time, often a full day or two to reach its real holding power, and up to about a week to fully cure. During that time, gravity is pulling every stone down, and a heavier piece can slowly sag or slide before the glue sets. So use temporary support, small shims, or spacers under pieces. A strip of painter's tape holding them, or a temporary ledger board screwed to the wall to rest the bottom course on while it sets. Give it that cure time before you lean on it or grout it. Rushing the cure is one of the most common ways this goes wrong. Finally, once everything is cured, you can grout the joints if your style calls for it, or leave them dry stacked and tight for a cleaner modern look. Either works, and for natural stone, especially anywhere it might get wet or dirty, finish it with a breathable stone sealer to protect the surface and bring out the color. It's the whole process. Let me quickly cover the two other places you might do this, since they each have a twist. A fireplace is a fantastic candidate, but respect the heat. Use cement board as your substrate. Keep the proper clearances around the actual firebox opening, and use heat-treated materials right at the high heat zone. Because ordinary construction adhesive is not meant to sit against extreme heat, the face of the fireplace, away from the firebox opening, is where the glued veneer goes. And the exterior, as I said, is the one to be most careful with. Weather barrier, flashing, freeze-thorated materials, and honestly, if it's a big structural job, the code-approved mortar and lath method, or a full manufacturer-specified exterior system, is the way to protect both your wall and the people walking past it. Let me tell you what happened when I did my first one. I had a plain, builder-grade drywall wall behind my fireplace that I'd hated for years. I called a mason for a quote, and the number was just over $3,000. $3,000 for one wall. So I decided to try the thin veneer and adhesive route myself. I put up cement board over the drywall, screwed into the studs. I bought real thin natural stone by the box and a handful of tubes of heavy-duty adhesive. And over one weekend, a slow, careful, genuinely enjoyable weekend, I covered that entire wall myself. Worked bottom to top, supported the courses while they cured, sealed it at the end. When it was done, people who walked in assumed I'd paid a fortune to have it professionally installed. My total in materials was a few $100s, not $3,000, a few hundred. The only thing I'd been missing all those years was the knowledge that I could let me put that in perspective, because the numbers are almost silly. That mason quote was over $3,000, most of it labor. My materials, the stone, the cement board, the adhesive, the sealer, came to a small fraction of that, and the only other cost was a weekend of my own time. That's the real math on this project. You are not paying for something that's impossible without a pro. You are paying a professional to do something that, for a lightweight interior wall, you can absolutely do yourself. Let me answer the questions I know are coming. Does the adhesive really hold long-term, or will it fail in a few years? For thin, lightweight stone on a proper, clean substrate indoors. A quality construction adhesive holds for decades. The adhesive is not the weak point. Weight and surface prep are. Can I really do this over drywall? Only for the very lightest decorative veneer. And even then, it's far safer to put cement board up first. Drywall alone cannot carry the weight of real stone. How heavy is too heavy? As a rule of thumb, keep it to thin veneer under roughly 15 pounds per square foot. Anything heavier needs real mechanical support, not glue. Can I do this outside on my foundation? You can, but only with an exterior rated system, a weather barrier, and flashing. And for a big structural exterior wall, the mortar-and-lath method, done to code, is genuinely the safer, longer-lasting choice. Do I have to grout it? No. You can grout the joints or dry stack them tight for a modern look, whatever style you want. Do I need to seal natural stone? For anywhere it gets wet or dirty, yes, a breathable stone sealer protects it and deepens the color. What exact adhesive do I buy? A heavy-duty construction adhesive, specifically rated for stone and masonry, and for exterior use, one rated for exterior and moisture. And can I do my fireplace? Yes, cement board substrate, proper firebox clearances, and heat-treated materials right at the high heat zone. How do I handle outlets and light switches? You cut the stone to fit around the box and use box extenders so the outlet still sits flush at the new stone surface. Never bury an electrical box behind stone. How long does a wall actually take? A typical accent wall or fireplace is a weekend job for one person a day, to prep and lay, plus cure time after. Can I change it later, or is it permanent? Be honest with yourself going in. Glued stone is meant to be permanent, and removing it later will damage the board underneath, so it's a real commitment. Will it hold a TV or shelves? No, mount anything heavy into the studs behind the wall before you stone it, not into the veneer. The stone is a finish, not a structural anchor. And do the corners really matter? Yes, by the L-shaped corner pieces made for outside corners. They wrap the edge and make the whole job look built-in instead of pasted on. That single detail is what separates a professional-looking wall from an obvious DIY one. I want to leave you with one honest thought. The reason a stone wall feels out of reach isn't that it's genuinely impossible for a regular person to do. It's that we've been taught to believe every job with the word masonry attached to it requires a professional, a truck full of tools, and thousands of dollars. And for heavy, full-scale, structural stonework, that's true, and you should hire it out. But for a beautiful thin veneer accent wall or fireplace, indoors, on a properly prepared surface, within the weight limits, that intimidating, expensive project comes down to a box of stone, a few tubes of glue, and a careful weekend. The pros aren't hiding a magic secret. They're just counting on you never realizing how much of that bill was for something you could do yourself. Now you know the honest version, where it works, where it doesn't, and how to do it right. So tell me down in the comments. What wall are you looking at right now, thinking about covering in stone? A fireplace? An accent wall? A foundation? I read every one, and I'll tell you honestly whether this method is right for your project or whether you should hire it out. And if you tackle a wall this weekend, come back and show me how it turned out. Next time, I'm going to show you how to lay a whole paver patio yourself, the professional way. For a fraction of what a contractor charges, including the one base step that 90% of DIY patios get wrong and pay for a year later, subscribe so you don't miss it. And remember, most of what you've been told requires a professional is a job you were simply never shown how to do.